We'll call this meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. and ask that the attendance please be recorded. Please take a few moments to review the agenda for tonight's meeting if you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so, and then I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I was just gonna say, no.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Thanks, Renee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Scott, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to Article 3, approval of the minutes of the July 18, 2023 meeting. If you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so, please review the minutes from our last meeting, and then I'd appreciate it if someone could make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for July 18th.
Thanks, Michelle.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you so much, Scott. Any discussion, comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Article 4. This is the point in our meeting where we open up the floor to acknowledge visitors who may be wanting to speak either on items that are on our agenda or not on our agenda. We try to limit those comments to 5 minutes per speaker, so I'll try to remember to set a timer. I invite you to, in an orderly fashion, if you have comments that you would like to make, please approach the podium.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Terry Riggle and I live at 2765 Orange Avenue. It's actually the Gaylord House. It's a senior low-income housing place. And we were at the township board meeting to discuss the transportation issue, losing the Rapid. But for us, losing the GO bus along with the Rapid is going to be very impactful for some of our residents. And so we're just here tonight to hopefully just ask that you would consider, I have the information from your packet with the information, I think, from probably McKenna regarding that you're not moving forward with the LIFT program, and that you are currently working with Hope Network to supply ridership for people that need to get to work. And obviously that's very important. And for the DDA, that's going to be top on your list, but we are just hoping that along with that consideration that that we can have, that Hope Network would also include the people and residents in like senior, for seniors and the disabled. That would also come along with any kind of agreements that you're working out, if that's possible. I'm not sure how, if it's only DDA funds can be spent for like something within the DDA boundaries. And because we do need transportation on the weekends, which currently Hope Network does not do, except for employees that need to get to work. So I'm just, I'm here with a little group of my friends as well, that you would be able to, tonight we could find out a little bit more about maybe what's going to be moving forward with your plans with Hope Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we will be hearing more about that, so do stick around. Next.
My name is Frances Foley. I'm a transplant from Massachusetts 17 years ago, and I appreciate, Grace, your response on Nextdoor. I'm at midnight last night, and I put a response also.
I have a really busy social schedule, but I took the time.
Pardon me?
You said I have a really busy social schedule. I'm actually pretty cool. But
Well, that's what your age group should be doing. Absolutely. I'm here as an older woman, not an old woman, as I was referred to in your meeting by a gentleman.
not me.
And I'm concerned regarding the transportation, especially on weekends for the above people. And on Nextdoor, I had 2,000 views out of the 20,000 residents of Cascade. And 19 people also were more attentive to it. I think Nextdoor is a valuable website to find out different things about government, and this is a learning process for all of us. I have contacted Fox 17 and MDOT, because MDOT is in charge of transportation also, I believe, in the state of Michigan, if I'm not wrong. I will always hope that I will be able to drive. If I don't, I want to go up to the next life story up in hopefully heaven, if not in the fire for a while. But my hope is that this project will move forward and not be stalled by aspects that can't be discussed between the DDA and the township, in which I get a sense. I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. I've attended meetings, commission meetings in the city of Boston when in the 70s and 80s, and their meetings were 18 plus councilors. So it was much bigger. My thing about on the weekends is people get into medical problems that they need to go to the walk-in clinics. They need to run out of a certain medicine at the pharmacy, or they need some food that they didn't expect to have to buy on the weekend. They did their shopping during the weekdays like I do on Tuesday or Wednesday. I realize the seniors are only 17% of Cascade Township's population of the 20,000. And what will the population be in 2 years? I think it will be higher than 17 in my estimation. Who knows? Now, to end my thoughts, if the transportation is not satisfactory when I cannot drive, I will have to go back to Massachusetts and have substandard housing, but I will have adequate transportation to the major teaching hospitals in Boston for my health concerns, which I find the healthcare here satisfactory, maybe. It took them 7 cardioversions, 2 ablations to get me a pacemaker in 7 years at Spectrum. And I was a nurse for 36 years in Boston in major teaching hospitals, nursing homes and hospice and visiting nursing. And I went into the most dangerous parts of Boston that the police would want a 3rd gun, not the 2nd gun they carry on their legs. So that's thoughts for you to ponder on. And I hope I haven't been too harsh, but I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Would anyone else like to give public comment from the audience here tonight? Do we have anyone on Zoom who would like to give public comment? All right, last chance. All right, then. Moving on to Article 5, discuss and consider transportation planning. So we have a couple items to address from under this article. The first is the Hope Network Services proposal, which Ted is going to speak a little bit about. And then we will move on to termination of the McKenna statement of work regarding the lift pass proposal that we discussed at last meeting. So at this point, I'd like to turn the conversation over to Ted. And Ted, will you please say your last name again? And I'm Eastern European, so I should be better than this and be able to pronounce it, but I'm afraid to screw it up.
Yeah, no problem. Smith.
That's perfect.
It's Andrzejewski.
Andrzejewski.
That's Italian.
Gotcha.
Now it's Polish.
Yes.
Anyway, I would like to speak from here so I can see all of you and I can see our residents who came out today. First of all, I have been taking phone calls from everywhere, from businesses, from seniors, and I return every phone call, as many of you may know if you have called me. But here's what I want to say. I'm going to give you an update on Hope Network, and then I'm going to address some of your questions that you said here. But probably during my little bit talk here, you'll have your questions answered. Okay. So we have been discussing an alternative to the rapid service for about 3 weeks with Hope Network. And where is he? Scott is here. He will be available for questions also. The idea is to duplicate as best as we can the services from the rapid, over time. That's the key, okay? Over time. The first thing we're looking at is how do we get people to and from work? Because there are many people in this community who work on businesses on 28th Street who depended on the Rapid for rides to and from work. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I give those individuals lots of credit for going to work because there's so many people in our society who don't want to work anymore. So we want to take care of them. And that's Hope Network specialty is ride to work. Just today, Scott and I got together and we have a preliminary route and a probable route. Again, the words are very important. Preliminary and probable. And we will put that on the website in the next few days. As I'm going here, those of you who do have computer access, look at our website. We're going to put everything on there, everything transparent, everything that you want to see is going to be on there. So we will have a route within the next few days that's preliminary. Now, just like the Rapid, Hope Network has a division that takes care of disabled people and people with special needs. They will pick you up at the house, residents, take you to where you want to go and back. Now, if you note, the Rapid had the bus, we will have the bus. The Rapid had Go Bus, which was for disabled and special needs. We will have Hope Network for special needs. So one of the questions that came up is, can we do that through the DDA? And my answer is, we were doing it before, we can do it now. Same services, different company. If it's okay with the DDA.
Yeah, and then the setup with the paratransit system, which would apply to the Gaylord House folks and also those with disabilities throughout the township, is through the general fund at the township. So this would be the fixed route.
Okay, all right, good. And in the same thing, when you had the Go Bus, sometimes people got picked up with Hope Network because they were part of Go Bus and they use their services. So we're addressing in step one, people needing to go to and from work and people with disabilities needing to go to their appointments for doctors, hospital, whatever. Okay. Now, step two is going to be down the road, addressing shoppers. People want to go to the bank, who want to go to the grocery stores. That will be down the road, and that's going to depend on capacity of the buses and how much money we have to allocate to that. Now, we're very hopeful that it's not going to take a year or 6 months, that it's going to take a few months, as Scott and I kind of talked about today. That first is get people to work, then let's see what capacity we have on the buses and what size buses we need to do. Now, specifically for seniors, if you look on our website and if you look in Kent County, there is a service called RideLink. RideLink costs are very, very reasonable. And by the way, I'm retired, okay? So when I speak about retired people, I'm retired until they forced me to come back to work.
So technically you're not retired. until we say-
So anyway, the bus service from RideLink is Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4. Okay, 4:30. Pickup, delivery, right from your home to where you're going and back. $2 each way. Very, very reasonable. Now, here's what I have to say to you, and I'm saying this honestly as being a retired person. I don't shop on weekends. I don't go to a bank on weekends. I'm retired. I can go during the week. So until something else develops with Hope Network, you need to adjust your schedules a little bit and go to your appointments, go to your bank, go to your shopping, go to Walmart, go to Meijer, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. Okay? We will not have anything right now for the weekends. So that you're going to have to adjust to. But just think about it. We're helping people going to and from work. We're helping disabled people any day of the week. And we're RideLink, not us, RideLink, but we pay, I believe we pay into that. Somebody does in Lake County. The senior millage pays into RideLink. So you will have Ride Link, those of you in the apartments that are here and those of you who are needing transportation through Ride Link Monday through Friday. We are working very closely with Hope Network, and Scott, if you have any questions, Scott will answer some more. Remember, what we're doing is something that would take the Hope Network and probably any other company 6 to 8 months to implement. We're trying to do that in a month. Now, when we implement it, starting the 28th or 29th, I forget what date it is, there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some transition. There's going to be some adjustments. But the thing we have with the Hope Network now is they are willing to work with us and adjust their schedule. So let's say we start off with rides every hour and we find out that that's not enough. Well, then maybe we can go to every 45 minutes. Maybe it's too much and we go to once every 90 minutes. And maybe we don't need to just go up and down 28th Street. Maybe we need to go to the side streets, to the business parks eventually, things like that. So we have an organization that's willing to work with us. Whereas the Rapids said, we're going down 28th Street. We're going to stop here, 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 and here, take it or leave it. Okay. And the DDA came up with with McKenna, 4 different proposals. They rejected every one of those. They didn't want to hear it. So we have a much more workable organization to work with. We have an opportunity to do a public, private enterprise here to get things going. So just give it some time, give it some chance to work itself out. And I think you're going to find this is a better system. I think that's all I have.
Ted, could I interrupt you to?
Go
help-
right ahead,
help you
please.
Refresh my memory. So there was a meeting last week with,
Business owners. Mhm.
And I vaguely recall someone, I think from Disability Associates.
Disability
saying-
advocates of Kent County.
Disability advocates saying there may be other options for transportation as well. Am I remembering that correctly?
Mhm.
Is there a way for us to add that to the website as well?
Yeah, I'll find out. I must have missed that, but I'll
And I
find
think
out.
that he connected with Scott perhaps after the meeting. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name.
David somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, David, yeah, well, yeah, David Bukowski. Yeah, I speak to him quite a bit. I'll find out if there's any more. I know they just announced a program for veterans. So if there's any seniors living in those apartments and that are veterans, there's now going to be a service for veterans. Dave sent me some emails on that today. One other thing I forgot. The Rapid discontinued the stop at the YMCA. And I know there's a lot of people that use the YMCA and there's a lot of people with disabilities who use the YMCA. So we are definitely going to stop at the YMCA. Okay. So that's already a plus for a lot of people. So that's it. I mean, we still have a few more things to work out. As the DDA knows, they're preparing a contract for you to look at and review. And we're still talking a little bit about pricing. The rides, Scott, now this is not set in stone yet, but the rides, we're looking at $2 each way, just like the Ride Link. And any income from the rides will be credited to the township off of our bill. So we're trying to address everything we can in the shortest period of time. So I don't know if you want to ask questions now or wait till later, or what do you guys want to do?
Let's start with DDA board questions for Ted or for Scott. Why don't you come up?
Scott, come on up.
Mind
Yeah.
Introducing yourself. He keeps waving in your general direction and you haven't hit the deck yet.
He's hiding in the back there.
Joining us at the podium here so that the folks at home can hear you. Appreciate it. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. It happens all the time. My name is Scott and I am in charge of the Wheels to Work program, which is the employment side. So there's, just for a quick understanding of it, I call it a fence. There's 2 sides of the fence. There's my side of the fence, that's Wheels to Work. The other side of the fence is, I mean this in the best way possible, all of the good stuff Hope Network does, helping the handicapped, helping the disabilities and all that. My boss, Jason, runs that side of the fence, and he's not here today. He couldn't be here, but I know I've only been in the job for like 2 months, so I know a little bit about that side of the fence, but not a lot. But I will do my best to answer any questions.
Well, we've been, the part that you've hit the nail on the head as far as where the whole, which is evening and weekend services for seniors in Cascade Township. But the reality is the way that it's set up, that Go Bus system, the Rapid is required by law to be ADA compliant to provide that service, but it's based on their fixed route. So it would be like having to pay for an entire buffet to get a banana. I mean, that's not I was trying to think of analogies. It is so rigid if you're a non-millage community. And Cascades right now doesn't have the public support to pass a millage. So if you're trying to, we were paying out of pocket a route that was based on the needs and the desires of Wyoming and Kentwood millage communities. We pay just as much per service hour. In fact, initially we paid a lot more, but it's just a fixed route up and down 28th Street, 12 stops east of Meyer that aren't being used. So overwhelmingly, the data show that it's cost prohibitive. So I feel terrible for you guys, for the seniors that are affected, but at the same time, the only thing worse than limiting that benefit to seniors to working hours is to agree to an absolutely terrible deal. It would make more sense to get Gaylord House a car. I mean, it's just the way, the rigidity of the Rapid transportation system. I don't think you could find any other non-millage community in Kent County. Watch, I mean, we're the first ones to partner with Wheels to Work to actually subsidize this transportation system, right? And that's kind of what's missing from Wheels to Work is that the public partnership. So I feel really bad and I think about my grandma and everything. But we're in an impossible situation because the only thing worse than doing what we're doing now is doing what you're asking us to do because it's real money and there's no way you could crunch it. And I feel really bad and we'll continue to look at different options, but there's a give and a take. And when we're taking residents, the Rapid put us in this situation. It's not even their fault. They're very limited in what they can do because of all the federal stuff. But the reality is you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole with a fixed line route that doesn't work in this setup. It wasn't serving people and we can't take that to get that. It's just enough of my soapbox. I feel very badly, but it's the system. It's not us. I mean, I think Ted has done a fantastic job. McKenna, the DDA in particular, they are way kinder, harder than I mean, way patient, right? So we're doing the best we can. And I apologize that you guys don't like the answer, but right now you got to do all your stuff on at least subsidized transportation during the work hours.
Is there the possibility of a program developing on the weekends, or is that something that's?
That's in the other half.
Well, I understand, and I know that you'd be talking out of turn a bit because it's on the other side of the fence, so to speak, but.
One of the things that I think it can say speak for Jason is that, you know, we consider ourselves to be extremely flexible. And what we're not doing now doesn't mean it's not something we might potentially be able to do in 6 to 8 months. And I hate this because I have worked most of my career in the private sector in human resources, but the last 8 years I've been in the nonprofit world and I'm doing this to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And it frustrates me beyond words that unfortunately it all comes down to money. And I hate the fact that helping people to help their lives get better comes down to money. But because I have meetings all the time with Jason, he's got this 55-foot whiteboard on his wall and he's got my side, which is like 3 sentences. And then all the other stuff that he works on, there's more grants that I can count because it's all grant funded. That side of the fence is all grant funded and there's never enough money. And fortunately, because we're a nonprofit, I'm not supposed to say profit, but Wheels to Work does generate revenue. That revenue goes directly to the other side of the fence to fill gaps instead of having to cut programming. So we've gotten creative on a lot of things. I don't want to make any promises, but you know, it's come up as something that's important. And this is going to sound more blunt than I want it to. If someone can pay for it, it's something that we can do. And
And
I,
think
again,
it's
I
bit
take
different in
the fact.
village communities. So for example, we are not in, I'm curious for the Go Bus for seniors and those with disabilities, primarily seniors. I think it would be different in a village community as far as hours and service. You don't get anywhere near the same flexibility if you pay out of pocket and you're not a millage. And right now, Cascade, we don't have the support for a millage, nor the need, frankly. We just don't have it.
I'd like to hear from some of our board members, questions, comments.
I think the only comment I'll give is on the standpoint of it's for people who parachute into a meeting. We have a lot of DDA meetings, and this has been a topic that we've invested a lot of time and energy in probably over the last 18 to 24 months. And I just always think like a quick overview is helpful because I empathize with the passion and the frustration because this feels like it's all of a sudden. And I just want to echo that we walked really slowly with this. And just to give a little bit of a timeline, my timing might be off 18 to 24 months ago. We used to share the cost of the Rapid with the township. It was the township made a decision to no longer support the Rapid, and the DDA had to make a decision to continue to fund the full expense of the Rapid to continue service. We were worried about the disruption it would have to the community, the businesses, and what have you, in that what we're charged with supporting with the businesses. So we fronted the full cost of it and continued on the service. We re-upped the service again in an effort and brought in an outside group to help us work through the scenarios and tried to elevate. Unfortunately, when you make these decisions, it's going to impact people's lives and something we don't take for granted or minimalize at all. And so this has been a long process and things have not worked out the way we want to with all our proposals that we had for the Rapid. And we tried to find a way where could we meet that perfect intersection where it wouldn't make everyone happy, but it would take care of the majority of people. We could continue the bus service, the Go Bus service, if we made these revisions to the service hours or what have you, and they were not entertained. And unfortunately, we had a backup plan. Some things happened with it. And here we've arrived today. But this has progressed over 24 months in a very public setting. And no one here feels good about it, right? I mean, we want to have a win for the community. So I figured it was worth just saying that a lot of energy has gone into it. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths or if I've misspoke, but I think it's important, especially for people who care so much and who have come to the meeting.
Well said.
Well said. I think spoke for the entire board.
We have, and most of us on the board, with the exception of Grace, we're volunteers. So we're doing this, we love the community. We're trying to help. We're trying to also be good stewards of the money that is captured. And the DDA does have some limits in how and where we can spend our money as well. So we're trying to,
It would
as
be
Scott said,
inappropriate.
find that perfect solution where the DDA can provide all of that. And, we're really optimistic about this Hope Network proposal, although, we have to talk a little bit more specifically about what that contract will look like. So I don't want to put that cart ahead of the horse, but I think that eventually we'll get to a place where people can get where they need to go and get the services that they need. And if this doesn't work out, we're certainly willing to the extent that we're allowed legally to allocate funds for another solution. We're happy to entertain those as well. We're always open to hearing thoughts. So that kind of brings me to the next point. We don't have a contract because you guys are still working on that. So that puts us from a DDA board standpoint in a position where we need to have a conversation about what we want to approve here tonight that will enable Hope Network to deploy this program before the Rapid service ends.
Correct. I think my only comment would be on how we get people to work and what our guardrails are as a DDA. We support it up to, say, the budget we were trying to accomplish with negotiations with the Rapid. I would say that would be our ceiling, but I also think it's got to be a partnership with the township board, that if, as we expand those services and we know that we have we can only do certain things, and there's certain things we can't do if it involves outside the DDA. We will need the partnership of the township board to help create the best case scenario or solution for the residents.
So one of the things, if you heard that we want to do in phases, is related to the DDA. Once we get the right to work, people to work, once we take care of disabled, we want to expand it to shoppers. Now, this directly affects and helps the businesses who may be losing shoppers because of the lack of transportation. So we're going to try to do that as quickly as we can in order to incorporate shoppers to continue to come here. Now, Scott and I talked today, they have the pricings, he's not done with it yet. They have different size buses. So we're going to figure out, do we need this size bus, this one, or the big one? And then depending on the capacity and how much is being used by employees, we'll know how many shoppers can we put on that bus at any particular time. Then we can expand it into the shoppers.
So let me, and I believe I asked this clarification question at last week's meeting. The township is the entity that will be entering into the contract with Hope Network for both sides of the fence, correct?
The Rapid was done that way when they actually signed the
It
contract.
wasn't the last few years, that's why I'm asking, I'm asking for.
I'm not sure. We'll run it by legal. I'm not sure.
Okay, because, I mean, if we're talking about executing a contract, I can't in good faith propose that we just accept that without having reviewed it in advance. So if that were the case, we would need to call a special meeting of the DDA to approve that. If we're just talking about funding a contract that the township is going to review and have legal counsel vet, and then
Either way,
make
legal
the
counsel
decision.
needs, and either way, legal
Then-
counsel needs to vet
then
it.
we will be the entity deciding how much to fund that part of the contract. I'm just trying to put those guardrails in place, like you were
And
saying.
it's reasonable because it's time sensitive that we do a special meeting to make sure we minimize the disruption to the businesses in the community.
You may have to do a special meeting.
Totally agree. I mean, I don't know that we have enough information here to do anything beyond perhaps saying that, we're in support of the pivot from, the LIFT program to Hope Network.
I think we can approve the general setup, but then the dollar amount to be determined. Certainly Scott's idea about a ceiling was a good one.
Right. I mean, I don't want to say this as gospel because I'm not sure, the numbers may not be 100% correct, but if I'm reading the revenue report correctly, we have just under $90,000 left that we had budgeted for transportation. through the
For
end of
this year.
For this year.
Right, all right. And then
Right.
the
So,
number,
I guess that would be the guardrail I would be thinking of, would
For
be
this year.
staying within our budget for this year. And then obviously at a later meeting, we'll be talking about our budget for the next coming year, and we'll have more information to make that determination.
Yeah, Ted, you're the one, we're showing our cards here, but you guys are on top of this.
yeah, we know what we were working with, what kind of numbers, and that's what Scott's crunching here. They're going to be very fair with us and give us pricing that we can both live with. Okay, so it'll be I like that idea. We could do it from now till the end of the year and then go ahead and do a yearly contract after that.
Well, and the contract can be however you negotiate it, but the decision of, my proposal is that the DDA can agree to fund through the end of the year, no more than the amount that we have allocated remaining in our budget through the end of the year.
Yeah, and then there's 4 months left, so that should be, I hope, fine. Okay, thanks.
Thoughts?
I think that's a reasonable approach
Yep.
with the information that's available.
Mhm.
You want to make a motion?
Did you catch that? Who's keeping the minutes?
Scott, is that something you can live with?
Do you need more details, Scott? Or I guess we'll have to determine whose name the contract needs to be in.
Well, one of the things is, as we've talked about before, is us entering in a contract with the township. I want to back up a couple steps for just complete clarification
Please.
that we are, for the same reasons that Grace talked about, we are not a transit authority. The Rapid is a transit authority, so they have millage money and they have access to federal transportation money, all of that we do not have access to. We have determined a route that goes in line with, I think, what you guys were asking for. And the 12 stops, I drove it. Couldn't believe how many stops there were, but we've cut that down to, I think, 6 or 8, something like that. The biggest thing that's been a little bit difficult for us,
8.
as far as pricing, as how often we're going to run and all of these different things, is data. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I've gotten more because Ted has reached out to some more employees. So we've gotten a little more data. In order for us to figure out what's going to be the best size bus to run, how often to run, all that kind of stuff, we need to know, as Jason loves to say, how many butts we have in the seats. And we don't have all that data. So that's one of the things that I wanted to say to everybody, to back up what Ted said, is, again, Hope Network, you guys have been working on it for a couple of years, but Hope Network's been involved for 2 or 3 weeks. And to do something of this magnitude would take normally months and months to put together. So we're literally building the airplane on the runway. So we're just
But you guys are airplane builders, so that's good. We got the right people.
So as you know, and I'm thinking that you've had communications with McKenna. the
Yes.
folks From McKenna, because again, backing up and giving some additional context to the work the DDA has done in the past, pre-McKenna and even longer than 2 years ago, we had received data and information both from the Rapid, I'll call them, and from our own surveys. And, the problem with the information you receive from the Rapid is it just tells you, where people get on, where people get off, and it doesn't tell you who, and, trace it to specific individuals. So it's hard to know exactly where they're working or where they're going. The data, that is, I would say, though, a broader data set than what we got in response to the surveys that we pushed out, trying to get this information from the businesses and from the riders. Frankly, we got a very partial response, but that information should be in McKenna's hands.
And she has shared that with me, and that has been very helpful.
Well, the
It's-
Rapid did the best when they sent out paper letters referring everyone to call the township. And so Ted and I got quite a few calls,
Especially
where
with the wrong date.
yeah, to their favor. But so we paid, I don't know anyone, you guys couldn't have done a better job trying to engage to get the information. It's frustrating to still not know, but it's shown. Ted has shown up, he walked to businesses, we did the meeting. We've put it out there. I don't know what else we could do. So they should know. And the Rapid had everybody calling the supervisor's office that they could. And I spoke to a lot of people, and they were at Meijer, they were at Goodwill. We've talked to those employees. Walmart didn't show up. Costco didn't show up to the meeting. So we're doing what we can, but at some point you count the people that have gotten in touch with you. And if there's a bunch of people that are left behind, they'll squeak as soon as they don't get on the first spot.
And that's what we're anticipating.
Yeah.
It's that after
Until
we get
in the
rolling,
meantime, we're doing the best we can.
and there's
Send out-
employers that don't have people, that's when they're going to start asking.
We sent out another email Monday. Jessica helped me. And I was very strong in an email. It said urgent. It said, if you don't respond to this email, you'll be left off the list. So if you have any employees who need a ride, you need to tell us how many you have, what shift they're working, and what business you are. Now, in just the 2 days, we've gotten 14 responses. So the message is getting out there that if you want to be part of this program, you better email me so that we know where we can plan the route. Now, I think what's going to happen is exactly what Scott said. Once the program starts and once employees see that there is a ride available and how it works, they'll tell their friends. And I think that's how it's all going to pick up. So anyway, we're getting a better response. Maybe by the time another week or so goes by, we'll have a better idea of how many are going to ride.
I'm curious too, we can at the township reach out to see what other non-millage communities do in Kent County, what for seniors. And then also millage communities, because Ride Link has a pretty broad net. I mean, it's senior millage, that kind of stuff, but we can do some more legwork because we're not opposed to it. You just have to give us there's got to be a mechanism that makes it.
The millage communities use the Go Bus.
Well, the
And
Go
they-
Bus answers the calls and then it goes to potentially a few different.
Yeah, and then the senior
Provider.
millage supports the Ride Link. So the two that I found that people in millage communities use are the Ride Link and the Go Bus. Mhm.
Okay, so dialing this back then to what we can decide tonight. I will make a motion that the DDA approve reallocation of the remaining 2023 funds budgeted for transportation to Hope Network's Wheels to Work program.
Let's just say based on service hours up to a point, but you don't just get to take all the money
Well,
necessarily.
no, I mean, the contract is going to be negotiated by the township. We're not making any, this is assuming, and I can take this as a friendly amendment to my motion. This is
Poorly
assuming-
worded.
Right.
But
this is-
friendly.
No, but completely, I understand exactly what you're saying. This is not to assume that the money will be spent. The money will be available if the
Up
township.
to, you can say up
Perfect.
to,
Up
Yep.
to,
yeah.
yes.
And it's been allocated to the township to use in their good faith discussions or negotiations on a contract.
I'll accept
Right.
that as a friendly amendment to my motion. I'm glad this is being recorded so that someone can type that up.
Mhm.
Is there support for that amended motion?
I'll
Second
second.
the motion.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Pretty good work on behalf of you guys in a short amount of time. Good hustle.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so I would ask that if things change and the DDA needs to be improved or needs to approve a contract or be involved such that the DDA is going to be committing to a legal obligation, we need to schedule a special meeting. So please keep us in that loop so that we'll be able to do that.
Mhm.
And just for people who are here, the biggest concern, it was the Go Bus and filling that void. Keep in touch too. We'll do our legwork, but if you guys hear of other options, the township would very much appreciate it and is interested to hear about them.
And I think it's really important that the township update the website to include all of that, talk with what's his name from the disability advocates.
Mhm.
Add the additional resources that he mentioned last week at the meeting, because it may be, I mean, it's a little bit of a patchwork. It isn't seamless, but there may be resources that can address some of the gaps that are already existing.
Takes a village.
So, and let's talk that. Thank you so much, Scott.
Could I add one more
Yes,
thing?
You do, yes, please.
I wanted to just mention earlier that when I say we're building the plane on the runway, that's what we do. We've done all kinds of stuff crazier than this in the past. So this isn't our first rodeo. I don't want to make that statement as giving anyone doubt, because that's not the case. This is a new opportunity for us, because most of our service for Wheels to Work is door-to-door service. We usually partner with employers individually. So this partnership between public and private is new. And I think we're very, very excited because it can set a roadmap to Ada, to Lowell, to other townships that may have no means of transportation. And one of the things that my boss always likes to remind me is, and it'd be nice, Scott, that the rapid covers like this part of the county. Hope Network covers this part of the county. So we're used to going where we need to go to help those that need the help. Unfortunately, like I said, it just comes down to being able to have the funds. So thank you for your time.
And I think you've set the table well, saying perfection is not reality out of the gate. We're building something. Progress can sometimes be a little messy, but in essence, we're not going to have perfection. I think we make the best decisions with the data we have available and maybe build in 10% more capacity, knowing that you always get the last second people. Like I never got anything. It's the first I'm hearing that, and we do our best. And we build in at least that much grace to allow people to jump on board.
One of my last comment, as I said, I was leaving. Ted's kicking himself for having me come up here. Because we are not a transportation authority. We looked into doing that and said, we don't want anything to do with that. I can't stop my buses on a public road. So we have one of the biggest milestones that we've made is we have our main pickup and drop off spot established now.
And they are,
That's
can you
huge.
share that? Is that not yet? public information?
It's not public information yet.
It will be if you say it, so because it's.
Yeah, there's just, we've identified, it's the rapid, their last stop is going to be, apparently from what I heard from Dave at the meeting, was they're going to eliminate the stop that's at Home Depot. So their farthest stop down 28th Street is going to be by, I think it's Fox Motors.
Called Aqueous.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say the name of the road because I can't say it. And there's a bus stop right there and a 50-foot American flag on a private road that's there. And I got us permission to where we can stop our buses. And I went and took some pictures today. Ted had a great idea that I'm going to try and do another one with one of our buses actually parked in front of the flagpole, because the flagpole is going to act as our bus stop, because I can't actually put a sign out there that says Hope Network bus stop.
Well, we might.
Ted wants me to.
Just for like 5 minutes, we can get the picture and then
Have someone stand and spin it. It's over.
I said, put it out there till they tell us we can't do it.
I'm not
Well-
gonna endorse that.
So, and we are, as was said before, we're going to do everything we can to run the route that makes the most sense, knowing that if we have to make changes to it, we can accommodate that. So
The stops that will be posted in the next few days are the ones you all will recognize and say it's logical to put the stops there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
thank you.
So still discussing the topic of transportation, we need to talk about the statement of work that we approved at our last meeting to implement the Lift Pass program. So I'd like to invite Danielle up, just in case people have questions. There was a report included in the packet that addressed some of the hurdles that were identified by Township Council. And to be clear, I did not speak directly with Township Council, so I can't represent what may or may not have been part of that conversation. I think it actually may not have even been directly communicated to you, and we don't want to give legal advice on public record, but to the extent that people have questions about that, this would be the context for discussing that. Suffice it to say, council identified some obstacles relating to funding and the fact that Lyft would not be willing to negotiate how they structure payments through their standard services agreement.
And we currently don't have a credit card with a minimum of $200,000 that can be open to a private. And there was a few gray areas that we couldn't overcome.
Yes, so that was essentially information that we didn't have, or that wasn't disclosed to us until we got to that point of being ready to go. And then they said, oh, okay, well, now you just have to do this. And we were like,
Card and we'll be ready.
wait a minute. So that was essentially the biggest issue. So, kind of given the conversation in the background that you guys heard prior to me coming up here, at this point, we're just looking at terminating that contract as written, as if it never happened. And then any costs that incurred, up until this point will be part of that, but anything else after that will be null and void. And there will be no other costs that will be a part of that contract.
Questions?
Are you being so it's set out though that if there are transportation issues going forward, you have a way the contract gives you wiggle room for work that.
Yes, because I believe we have our contract through our work with you guys for the transportation committee assistance. So per that contract, we have the ability to bill things hourly, like a meeting attendance. If you guys ask us to do work on something, we have the ability to bill for that. So our services are covered through that contract already.
Okay.
should we be asked to assist with whatever.
So for purposes of transparency, let's make sure that that line of communication comes from us, since I want to be sure that we're. Yeah, I mean, I know you also have a contract. McKenna also has a contract with the township, so just for purposes of
Yeah.
billing. good
Yeah,
luck
they're two
keeping it
separate buckets.
Understood. So just make sure you're dipping in the right bucket.
Yep.
I would move to terminate the McKenna statement of work as relates to implementation of Lift Pass.
I will second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Don't leave. Anything else to discuss relating to transportation at this time? I'm sure we'll have more in the future, but. All right, hearing nothing, let's move on to Article 6, which is to discuss and consider the Thornapple Plaza planning.
Yeah.
Danielle.
So this is a bit lighter and more exciting, I think, than the transportation issues. So your packet includes kind of an update on discussions that we've been having. If you guys recall last meeting or last month, I let you guys know that through the Developer Day event that the Right Place put on, we were able to make a great communication and partnership with the folks that own that property at Thornapple Plaza. And since then, we've been sitting with them at a meeting bi-weekly or almost bi-weekly, as in every other week, because I believe it has 2 separate meetings, but every other week, to kind of talk through like what expectations are, where we see everything going, how we can assist, how we can help each other to establish that public-private partnership. So the marching orders that came out of that last meeting when we met over 2 weeks ago was for our architect through services that are already within our scope through the strategic plan, to come up with renderings for the idea of where Thornapple Plaza might be in the future. So he came up with 2 different renderings, the first of which is on the bottom of page 3 of your packet. That is like the best option. So as you can see, there's 2-story buildings, there's awnings, walkable spaces, a boulevard type pedestrian entrance, that nice gazebo there, landscaping, more of your downtown urban village, well, I should say village type feel, not urban, but more of a walkable village type environment where there's going to be intermingling between residential uses, retail uses, office uses, and so forth. And then further, we did our architect, Mike Campbell, designed like a better option, which isn't necessarily the best option, but an option that could be a middle ground kind of happy medium between what the property owners may be expecting and kind of still accomplishing that village type atmosphere goal. So that rendering is noted at the top of page 4 on the next page of the memorandum. So again, we're still want to emphasizing public spaces, walkability, sidewalk connections, having a mix between residential and commercial uses, public spaces with landscaping and so forth. But this would be a little bit more of a less intensity of multi-stories and so forth. So essentially, what happened during the last time we met with property owners is we showed them these renderings and said, what do you guys think? And they said, we like it, but we got to get back to you on logistics. So they're working with their engineers and their architects to kind of come up with what they think a logical cost estimate may be to enhance their existing buildings to the best scenario, and then kind of working backwards from there. So this all leads me to the proposal to amend our current contract with you guys for the DDA strategic plan. So because the Upper Village area, or what has previously been dubbed as the Upper Village area, has now been kind of sussed out already because of all the improvements you guys have been working on and moving forward with Friendship Park and all of those things, that rather than focusing on that Upper Village of what that central gathering space might be, because that work has already been done, we thought, and with working through the Kingswood Township staff and leadership, that our services and money that has already been allocated for the Upper Village may be of better use to assist with implementation for Thornapple Plaza specifically. So The proposal here is to essentially allocate the same amount of funding. So this is not any more funding than what has already been approved, but just kind of reorganize it into what would be the highest and best use of your funds. So that would include work and homework on the McKenna backend to do some research and analysis and help out with implementation of how to establish those public-private partnerships and what tools the DDA has available to you to assist private property owners with enhancing their buildings to achieve that lower village or downtown village type atmosphere. So whether if that turns out to be a facade improvement program and helping out with the logistics and launching of what all of that administrative tasks might be that may be involved with that, or perhaps that is a researching on what other tools, using case studies and around across the state of what other DDAs have done to help out with launching these public-private partnerships and getting this particular project off the ground, because this is going to be kind of like the precedent, so to speak, because we've already got all the players at the table, which is a great first step, and everybody's on the same page and has the same goal of what they want this to be. But the property owners are now saying, great, we're on board, but what can you guys do for us? Like, what do you have available or in your arsenal, so to speak, to assist with the implementation of this type of development? So that's kind of where we sort of see this going is, rather than focusing all that budget and time into the upper village, but more so reallocating and reorganizing to assist with how do we actually get this done? Does that help kind of explain it a little bit? Okay.
Makes very good sense. There's a reason that I didn't go into a math field. Do the numbers net out at being the same, or are they a little bit more with this revised scope?
So the numbers are the same. What I ended up doing was the mobility improvements. Okay, so I reallocated a $2,000 scope from the upper village plan. That is identified in the request for proposals on page 3.
Okay.
That got reallocated to the redevelopment conceptual design, basically to cover these renderings here and any revisions that may happen with those renderings based on what we hear from the property owners. So that essentially kind of helps beef up the drawing aspect of it. And then the $8,000 towards the upper village at the bottom of page 3, that's crossed out. And that $8,000 will then be reallocated to implementation resources, task number 4. So it's all the same amount within that $28,000, but just divided out differently.
Okay. I love that. I think that we can really benefit from the help of having McKenna give us ideas about how to incentivize the redevelopment. And we've talked about it previously.
I agree as well, but I think we need to be clear onto what we think success looks like, meaning that if we know, and I'm not an urban planner, but if my general understanding is the more mixed development you have, the better chance that what you're doing could be successful, meaning engagement of or activation of the spaces we're creating of a downtown area, but also the patronage of those said businesses to keep those businesses active and thriving, as opposed to vacant storefronts. Because at the end of the day, we can beautify it and still end up in the same place to where we're at, and we don't have activation. So I think as we look at allocating these funds and focusing them, it's important for us to say what needs to be true for us to make these investments, which is going to drive the renderings and the work and everything else. It's very subtle, like between the two images. But what I would say is there's a lot less mixed development at the top of number 4, page 4, where it looks very similar to what we have today, but with the gazebo and trees. And I don't know if we're accomplishing what our vision of what we're trying to do with that space and get to where we ultimately want to be with a downtown feeling where people are congregating and coming together.
Agreed.
If I may kind of answer that a little bit.
Yeah.
So that exact concept is being considered while we're working with property owners and through the design process. So part of that idea and that overall that I do that every time. The overall design that you guys saw months back, where it was just kind of like blocks that we said, well, this could be mixed use, this could be this could be that. That overall design was also designed in mind with the idea that we don't want to oversaturate the commercial and retail market in this space, because it is very likely that something like that could happen, that there's too many mixed use buildings and now all of a sudden, but we need more housing, but we have too many commercial spaces. So that's something that will be heavily considered through this design process, as well as through our other efforts through the master plan amendment process, when we are talking about architectural design standards and how that review committee fits in with what you guys are doing. So there are different pieces that are working in tandem with one another that will lend itself to answering that question.
And that's exactly what the developer, or the owners are focused on.
Yes.
Because they can only do it if it's profitable. And that's exactly their mindset, because it's not like a Ada's redevelopment,
We're not Ada.
just as far as funding.
Right. But to Scott's point, if our goal is to achieve that mixed use development, then perhaps our incentives should be geared toward, incentivizing that floor two or whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, and
Yeah.
my stuff just disappeared off my screen, so, but there's a line item in there for goals and objectives. It's like $2,000. Can you clarify what that goals and objectives, because is that it? Is that what we're talking about here in terms of identifying what those things are for this project?
So that task, if you guys recall, this was like months ago. And this may have even been last year that we talked about goals and objectives for the DDA. That's where that piece comes in.
That's the more
Yep.
general. Okay, so, but I agree with Scott in terms of understanding, because we've talked about this with a lot of the sort of preliminary concepts that, it's like, how does this tie in overall with what those goals are for that lower village area? And there's kind of two sides to it. It's one, what's helping the business owners, and the other is what's helping the community. And so if we could really clearly identify those, be able to articulate them, because I think it'll be important going forward as we we need to be able to talk about all of that. So
Where was it at as far as the exhaustive strategic plan that we did? Was that the top priority, or certainly
The top.
yeah, over a board? I mean, everyone, but it's also the most complicated.
Yeah.
And we don't have the staff currently, but the manager that's starting in September, who I'm going to he can make the decision on as far as economic development director hire, that kind of thing. One of the main, not the main financial expertise, but also he took an area in one of his, where he previously worked, that had 90%, whatever was empty, 90% redeveloped the entire downtown area. And so I talked with him and he said, well, MEDC, you got to, he's
right.
He's someone who can handle with you. I mean, he's not a professional planner, but it's complicated. So it
Yeah.
takes somebody who's done it.
Well, and that's the last piece of this is, not just what's good for the business owners, but what's good for the township in terms of this idea of what's that mix of planning? Because otherwise we're just shooting in the dark unless we have some of that information that guides us and says, going forward, this is probably what we should be looking at. Just as like the Parks Committee has now worked on how much land should we be and where should it be? And those are the same kinds of things that we need to be doing for these village areas.
I'd like to see that as part of the goals and objectives
Yeah.
for that.
One question I have is, McKenna done a project like this previously? If so, where and how successful has it been?
So that may be a question that Chris could likely answer better more than me. I know he's done work akin to this on the east side of the state. And I want to say it was Monroe. area, but I can circle back on that and let you guys know. And maybe I'll email Grace and she can fan it out, or Jennifer.
So
to
the manager
group.
who starts in September works for Canton Township, population of 100,000 people. It just so happens that they use Spalding to Decker as their engineering firm and they use McKenna, their urban planner. They don't use you or Chris, but he knew who Chris was.
Yeah, I Chris worked out on the east side of the state for a number of years before he moved back to GR in like 2016 or something like that. But I can certainly get you that answer. It's not personally within my scope. Because most of my experience has been more so on the DDA plan tip development plan side. For the implementation and public-private partnerships, that's more of his.
So in your planning, will you also develop a list of types of businesses that you think we need to attract for this area? Is that a logical question?
I think that that's certainly something that we can look into, but that really depends on how deep you want to get into that. So there is data and information that's available that like through Esri, which they do, they're like a geospatial software company, and they have like what they call as economic analysis. And so you can pull out preliminary information quite easily from that perspective. But if you're talking about going into like a deep dive market study, like that's probably going to be a separate item. However, and Grace, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the property owners mentioned that they have already done a market study in the area because that's what prompted them to buy that property in the first place.
Yep.
Now, is there one property owner of the,
No.
So
because at one time there was three, I believe, wasn't there?
I don't think it was once we made the connection, it was not as difficult and complicated as it was made out to be
But
before.
there
I
are
don't know what the
multiple owners.
Yeah, but they all know each other.
yeah, he said that they're basically,
Are separate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it's more local than what
yeah,
it was described before. It's
they function as like a partnership. And I think there's three of them. One of the three attends these biweekly meetings.
These
Or two of the three.
implementation committee or development?
Sorry, the meetings that we've been
Development
working with,
days.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
those folks directly. So we are not sitting at the table frequently with all of the folks that are involved because I think it's like a property, like an LLC kind of
Mhm.
but they
organization.
selected who.
Yeah. But they're all aware of what's going on and they're aware and they speak with one another and they work with one another very closely.
Now, I know the Right Place
Yep.
kind of brought this somewhat to the table. Working with them, will this be beneficial to have this project come to more of a fruition as far as, you know, obviously for the business owners, before they're going to invest a lot of money, they're going to probably want to have so many tenants lined up before they start building.
So the Right Place has the connections with MEDC. They financially, they're the ones who said, yes, they're excited because it justifies their existence as a nonprofit. It's exactly like the result they want from Developer Day. And they're looking to switch from, in the past, the prior leadership focused on industrial development. For example, what they want to do on the eastern side, southeastern of the airport. Now that they're going in a different direction and it's redevelopment, this exact kind of thing. So it would be exactly the reason why they hosted Developer Day. It's exactly what they do, but we have to have those connections because it's complicated. And through them, there's a nonprofit art organization, Lions and Rabbits or something. I guess they've been waiting to get into Cascade forever and had been contacting the township, but there was just no interest on the township's end. So we've got this organization plus the Cascade Community Foundation that has wanted to partner with the township. And the connections weren't made. So we've got the donors, you know, the mechanism set up because you can't do anything great without private benefactors. A government doesn't create this kind of stuff. This comes from the community. It's just making all these connections and getting competent people that want to do it and can. And it's taken a long time. But I think we're almost there.
I'd just like to ask a quick question. I apologize if I missed it, but this doesn't show behind the gas station by the Foaling and over by Harvest House Foods. Is that part of the owners that you guys are talking about? They're all together. Okay.
It's the Fowling, Dollar Tree, Chowhound.
Yeah, if I may explain the reasoning for that, because their improvements that they're doing for like siding and painting and stuff is phased out, and the phase that they had planned to do like this upcoming September was the buildings that you see on these renderings. So the Chowhound building, Dollar Tree building and so forth. So that's kind of why we focused on that piece, because we're like the urgency, for lack of a better term, for like on how this partnership will pan out financially for them. Like they were more wanting to take it bite-sized chunks at a time.
So this is the low hanging fruit of the project?
Well, so for example, the no-brainer public space at the township, that they're happy to turn over the township, but then in turn, we get to have more say in the design, which is a good part of it, is that ginormous parking lot and entry and that kind of stuff.
So that's all gonna be,
So that-
it's not
yeah.
gonna be like one really nice new area versus some area that people aren't participating
I
in.
mean, that's part of the buy-in,
The
right?
goal is a quaint village area that's more
Okay.
walkable, more of a classic, timeless feel, not a strip mall with
That's
pop.
what we need to incentivize, Scott. That's the whole.
Just making sure that everybody's on board.
Yeah. And that's kind
And
of
they have
like,
the same vision. That's what's great. The guy that
Yeah,
we're talking
they
to
do.
grew up in Cascade, rode his bike down there when it was a gravel pit and wants the same thing. His parents go here and he's also well connected. So
And so it's I'm gonna say the three sides. So the Starbucks side, the Chowhound Fowling Warehouse side, and then the
Hungry Howie's.
no,
it's not.
strip mall side
Not
that
Vietnam
has
That'd be the nail salon.
the nail salon,
Yeah.
the hair salon.
It's not that
So it's, we're looking at it as one kind of
Yeah.
large entity that's got several pieces to it,
correct.
correct?
That includes the Harvest Health building too.
these are not owned by the same people.
No, they're
The
not.
connections are made, but the
Yeah.
initial
And-
one is the big giant back Chowhound Fowling Dollar Tree, and then the one on the left.
Yeah, and that's where kind of the phases would likely come in at this point. So
Yeah.
And I think I gotta be careful because the parking lot. It all goes together. You can't just do piecemeal, so it's complicated and you can't force people to do stuff on their private property they don't want to do. Having said that, I think they own a good chunk of the parking
So
lot.
if this hasn't yet been created, it would be great if someone had a geographic map that identified the owners of the different parcels for purposes of.
They have that. We'll get it.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, and the county has that as well. We can easily pull that up.
But we had no economic development director, no manager. I mean, we were light. So it's amazing that we've gotten as far as we were. I don't know if this has been in the works before I came, but I'm really excited about it.
So let's pull this back to what you need from us tonight, which is to consider revising our, sorry, spaced out for a second, our strategic plan contract with McKenna to make the changes to the scope and reallocate some of the dollars. Are there more questions about that?
Great job and thank you. You're doing a really good job.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion as presented.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Thank you, guys. And I also want to apologize for all of the pivoting that's happened, and everyone's probably got whiplash after this meeting of what's been going on. But as we work through things, new items have come up, and meeting the property owners who wanted to work with us right away was not something that we expected to happen, which was great. But also we as McKenna wanted to make sure that we're providing the best services to you guys, and that makes the most sense for your needs. So.
We're rubbery.
And I don't think we would have gotten where we're at today had you not, I mean, I know it wasn't what we were thinking with Wheels to Work. It came up kind of at the end, but it took a long time to get there and you did a great job.
yeah, and all the work that was done in the process has been really valuable. So
Very valuable. It's too bad that people don't know how much volunteer time you guys put into it and effort by you.
Brain power behind McKenna.
And also, all of us thought that the Rapid would be a little bit reasonable. The only reason we're here is because they were basically like pound sand, no. And then we're like, they didn't give us a choice. Like, I think everyone thought we'd have a slightly, less frequent schedule with not quite as many stops, and because you pay by the service hour. Nobody was expecting, no, you got to keep paying for 12 stops until 10 at night that nobody uses the same
I
amount.
think we're headed in a good direction.
Yep.
Long story short, thank you. You did a great job.
Yeah, no, and we're happy to, provide what you need.
Yep.
Housekeeping issue, can you send me a clean version of this? And
Yes.
then I will
Yep.
take care of signing it. Thank you.
Which one is this?
the one we just approved.
Would it be helpful for me to amend the section relating to goals and objectives? As like per what we had talked about, or is that not necessary?
Pretty broad, hold on.
To me, I feel like there's this perfect intersection where it's a top priority of residents that we have an activated central space. We want to have a very activated business area there that currently has a lot of vacant spaces. I think the township has an opportunity to see their investment do well where their tax base goes up, depending on how you mix what that mix looks like to then reinvest in things in the community. I think everyone could have a big win here.
Mhm.
And within that objective, I think, and from what I've read from other municipalities, there's that really good intersection. I think this project kind of is in a really strong sweet spot with those objectives.
I don't think that the language of the statement of work needs to be changed. If that's
Okay.
what you were asking, but I think
Yeah.
hopefully this gives you some context for what we're hoping to see when you give us that deliverable. Yep.
One concern I have is, okay, we're looking at the entrance and then redoing primarily, let's say, the building where Chowhound is. But then there are other buildings with, my perception is, other owners. And I really think we need to have a coordinated overall plan before we proceed, because, okay, we invest money in this and then, well, the other property owners are not willing to go on board. And so I think we need to have, a concept of what the whole thing is going to, let's say, look like, and a written, I can't say commitment from the other property owners that in time, this is what we're willing to commit to.
Letter of intent.
Agreed.
Because I hate to do part of the project and then the rest of it looks like trash.
It won't be successful.
No,
Right.
no. So, because from my perspective, I want everybody on board from the private entity standpoint before the township commits money to the overall project.
100% agree.
And to that point, I think that that's something that we can work with the property owners that we've already made contact with, because they know the folks who own the gas station, they know the folks who own a lot of those other parcels, the Starbucks, all of that. So that's a great point and a good start.
And so like United Bank, it's the presence they need, right? The name right on Cascade Road. But then according to the Right Place person, there's some kind of MEDC funding or something. If you have a bank on your lower floor to do mixed use, there's creative ways to do it where you're eligible for different, like why we were kind of like, why is the nicest corner building in Ada credit union? Well, because you get so maybe there's, and they're willing to think that way. They still get the sign, the presence of visibility, but then maybe if you tweak to a mixed use, it's just very complicated, but very exciting.
Driving through Ada.
What else do you need from us?
That's it.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you
I
much.
will
Thank you very much.
send a clean copy of this.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Anything else on Article 6 regarding Thornapple Plaza? All right, moving on to Article 7, project updates, and this may well be, there are none. I don't actually have these updates, but I've included them in the event that Grace or Ted had anything to add to the conversation. So I'll just chug through these. So speak up if you guys have any updates. Cascade Road pedestrian bridge, or Brian too. Brian is here. If you've got an update to any of these, Brian, please let us know. Pedestrian bridge.
Spoke to our in-house engineer today, and he guarantees that they will have he's working with Spalding DeDecker, our engineering firm, as well as the road commission to come up with a plan that's ready to go out to bid so that it can be in construction early 2024.
Oh.
And I asked him 3 times, so I don't need to keep coming in to make sure because it's already in. He said he's on it. So.
Question is do we really want it during the school year? I mean, it is going to create such a traffic volume is so much less in the summertime than come fall through spring. And I think it's going to be a mistake to do the construction during the school year.
I don't disagree.
And it was brought up at a previous meeting. I think it's if we can plan for it during the summer months, it's going to be, I think, less of an impact on the community.
Yes, and less phone calls to the township.
Yes.
We're used to them, just add it to
And
the
what's
list.
happening on the highway.
Nobody suffers in silence.
It's true. Traffic is bad.
All right, moving on to Parks update, Tassau and Westdale Memorial Parks. Are there any updates?
Just what we discussed this morning, but no.
Just the buildings and grounds is working hard with the Parks Director to refresh the park and put together a plan because it needs some improvements that are going to cost money that right now in the past were not allocated, that there was no budgeting for.
Well,
I
we saw
think
that
that-
lovely presentation a few months ago from the
Mhm.
Parks Director, and that all looks very,
The good news is, Ryan, we hired as the new, in between buildings and ground supervisor. So he will handle more of the day-to-day operations, assigning the work and making sure the work gets done. That'll free up Melanie to do more of the, planning, look for opportunities for grants, put together the bids if they have to go out and those sort of things. So I think a lot of progress has been made in the structure. Now it's just going to be implementing.
Great.
And we discussed this morning, and I discuss with Melanie all the time, what are we going to do in the parks? And you're going to see continual improvements in maintenance, making them look better, signage, roof on one of the gazebos is going to be replaced, things like that. Spruce up the parks, make them look good.
And at the board meeting next Wednesday, she'll give her quarterly report. So that will have more details on all the same topics.
great. Pathway Committee. I don't know if we had,
And that's,
I included on last month's agenda, so I included on this one, I can take it off.
That's the pathways that they're working on now.
I don't know.
yeah, it's nothing new
Yeah,
other than,
Eric said it's progressing and should finish on schedule, so.
yep. And we still have the state allocation for 3.5 for the pedestrian bridge over the expressway, which is huge.
Yeah,
When is that going to be done?
Well, we just got 3.5 million. We don't actually have the
Okay,
money.
when's the current construction going to be done?
Which one? Oh, I don't know. They're
That's-
redecking that.
Yeah, not too much longer.
Is it still going on?
Close.
You're talking about Burton, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not till December? I honestly don't know.
Tremendous, okay.
I don't know that.
I don't think December.
Anything else on pathways that the DDA needs to know about?
I just have a question about the bridge over on Cascade Road. So the drawings that are being done currently take into the concerns that the pathways team
Yes.
had? Okay.
Yes.
So
And that was
that's
the
been
tricky part.
changed. Okay.
100% on board with it. And they were able to get a little more room
Okay.
pretty efficient so that the kind of the bike riders.
Yeah, 'cause I
we
know
still
that
needed
was
that
their
physical
concern.
barrier. Yep,
Okay.
higher railing, physical barrier, but still squeezed a little bit more. They
Okay.
actually met with the road commission directly. It was,
Okay.
so yeah, it was a win-win.
Right.
And we just haven't seen it. We just have to, as soon as we see the,
There's new railings, there's nice railings that are designed on there, there's lighting. And as
Nice.
Grace said, they squeezed out a little bit more room.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
But it needs lighting there badly.
yes.
That's good. to hear.
And then as far as road diet, right? So then take the discussion was had, and I'm not an expert, but then you're gonna take the little bit you can to kind of, subtly
Yeah.
road diets, what do you call that?
Calming,
Yeah,
Traffic. calming.
traffic calming.
yes, urban
Tactical urbanism.
tactical. Yep, so then it will go extend as far as much as possible down to that intersection, the corner.
That would
Oh,
be
good.
nice.
And before it, so
Before, yeah.
Church
how
on the
far-
Hill, and that's our neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
The
even before
old house,
Thorncrest.
sorry. So that one house that's there that
Yeah.
who cares about, what they think, we're gonna really dip into their property. Take advantage of that easement. Just kidding, we are not going to do that. But we might just
Be
inch it a little.
careful.
Like that.
You won't even know. You won't even know.
Bless. All right, moving on to master plan amendments. I'm just
Wait,
including
here's-
this just in
Okay,
case.
here's one, but I hate to.
If it's not ready, if it's still baking, then I'll just continue it.
So we're working with
Mm-hmm.
McKenna on that. The planning commission and board have signed a contract to review our master plan to bring that up to kind of speed with the strategic plan. So they're actually doing the first kind of introduction to that at the upcoming planning commission meeting. So they'll focus on a number of areas in the township too. So looking at appropriate densities and land uses, and it'll probably touch on again, if we have the appropriate uses in the, village area and Thornapple Plaza. So there'll be a number of items that we're looking at with the planning commission.
Just keep the DDA looped in if you need us to approve or vote on anything, or if you want our feedback.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, brief updates. So DDA Economic Development Director, I just included it because I have, but I understand from your prior comments that, what's the day that the new manager?
September 11th.
September 11th.
September 11th. Okay, so we'll start to pester him. Will he be at our September meeting then?
When's our meeting? September 19th.
Yeah.
Probably should check first, but I'd say yes.
Okay, just, populate the calendar before he shows
He
up.
might even be listening tonight.
I do. No, he might listen later. Strategic Plan Implementation Committee update. Michelle, is there any update to
I
provide?
was not at the last meeting, but I read through the notes and basically there was, most of the conversation was around, transportation, and pathways with the bridge, and I think that was pretty much it.
Okay. Joint meeting update. I've included this. There isn't an update because we're waiting for the manager to start, but I'll continue to include it just for accountability purposes. As I am with the next bullet, scheduling of the informational meeting, which we're not having tonight. It will happen. It's in September. So.
Are we okay? I don't know what the requirement is.
No, you have to get 15 days. You have to publish the notice of an informational meeting, 15 days.
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that needs to, we're gonna get that out
Okay.
such that we have that meeting. And Brian, as I mentioned, I don't have access to the native file for the presentation.
Yeah, I found that.
You
So
did,
we
oh,
have
good.
all that.
Okay, that'll make things much easier then. Right.
And the board has expressed similar, everyone wants to be kept in the loop, especially because there's a lot of stuff going on. So I think like for the Parks Committee, it's a little easier because we have a director, but quarterly updates to the board, and that will help too, once we get the new manager for the
Ask the
DDA.
DDA to make.
No, we'll put on the manager. Ted, you get an out, but it's certainly, yes, more than welcome, but really it comes down to,
Yeah,
you don't have
you
to.
have enough to talk about.
You
I'm
don't get-
happy to come
You
present.
don't
but
get
my
paid
thought
well
was
enough, but we gotta put that on hold until we actually
A
have.
multiple of my zero would be.
Yeah.
great. All right.
So anyways, the quarterly updates to the board in these different areas are also starting, and that's.
That'll be good. Any other business? I've included in the agenda, the meeting minutes from the last strategic plan implementation committee and the board minutes.
Yeah. this one.
And a copy of our budget to date, and you'll note that,
And the new manager.
we've also included the,
Sure.
ledger
You'll watch
that reflects our fund balance availability. Note that this is not up to date because it doesn't reflect what we've allocated for the library project, for the pedestrian project. So the number isn't exactly correct. And that will be updated, but I imagine that will happen after the township manager starts. So we'll continue to let that, we won't expect it at our September meeting because that would be a little bit of a push. But I like to include it just for transparency purposes.
And it sounds like we're on notice that we potentially need to have a special meeting.
Yes.
Depending on what information comes up. So to be ready for that.
And also
Yes.
like the transportation committee, technically advisory only, it's not a quorum. I just wonder what information we get, if we can send it, if that may be.
Depends on what you're asking
Yeah.
for. I mean, if the decision from the township is that the DDA needs to sign the contract, that's a DDA decision that has to be made. The transportation committee can talk about tweaks or feedback, but honestly, McKenna is going to be a better resource for a lot of that because they did a lot of the digging, and the transportation committee just directed those efforts. So we can certainly meet as a transportation committee, but
I just
decisions
think
will
as
have
far
to
as
be
keeping
made
everyone
by-
in the up to date as much as.
I mean, informational messages can be sent out to everyone without holding a public meeting, without violating the Open Meetings Act, but any kind of deliberation or decision has to be via special meeting. So it just depends on what the township might need from the DDA on that. Other items?
No.
All right, since we've reached the end of our agenda, I will entertain a motion from one of you to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thanks very much, everyone. Adjourned at 7:03.
Thank you for coming tonight.